Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Trailer Into Reaction. What I was working to do was publish a review of VHS 94, which will come this week. Though, as most of you have probably heard, there was a Comic-Con over the weekend, and Marvel Studios reviewed their upcoming production slate. And they released a teaser trailer for Black Panther Forever. And this will probably be one of my more longer reactions, because there's a lot going into this. First off, it's a sequel to one of the highest earning Marvel Studios movies ever made, and it continues the story of the Black Panther, who is played by Chadwick Boseman, who died, I want to say, 5 or 6 months after that film was completed. So there's a lot that this film carries. Though also, it serves as the introduction of Atlantis and Namor, the Submariner, who is one of my favorite characters, and it's worth mentioning, appeared before Aquaman. It's just that he's being introduced afterward in the live action universe. And speaking of Namor, how Marvel is treating him is also very interesting. And I don't know how it's going to work, or if I even get it, frankly. In the sense that, as you can see from this image, Namor, complete with ankle wings, and I want to see how that works. That's always been fascinating to me. But Namor and his people seem very much patterned on Aztec culture. And that's really strange to me, because if you know anything about Aztec culture, and I don't claim to know a lot, but I know a little, it seems to be very much centered around sun worship. The Atlanteans, as depicted in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, live in the water. They're an aquatic race, and yet somehow their culture is modeled on the Aztec culture, which, as I said, is sun-centered. Literally the opposite of the Aztecs. Or the Mayans, whichever. And the thing is, the movie may have a very good explanation for that being the case. But on the face of it, it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, what I think has a lot to do with it was that the Aztecs were an inland culture, which is to say, they obviously knew of the ocean, being that they relied primarily on things like farming for sustenance. Their attachment was always greater to the land than it was to the water, and that in turn molded their culture. So I'm interested in that. And I'll be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of the Black Panther movie. I didn't hate it, and it certainly had some great moments in it. But as a whole, I wasn't particularly that much of a fan of it. It just never quite resonated for me. And without Chadwick Boseman, I'm not sure where it's going to go. So there are a lot of questions and a lot of things that are really interesting about this upcoming movie. And it has quite a burden to carry. There are so many ways this movie cannot work out right. The entire creative team from the first movie are back, so there's continuity in that sense. Though, like anything else, a lot of it, whether or not it works, frankly, is going to ride in the execution, because so much of the first movie was on Chadwick Boseman's shoulders. Without him, I just don't know where this narrative is going to go.
No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry. Hey, little darling, don't shed no tear. No woman, no cry. Good friends we have, and good friends we've lost along the way. In this great future, you can't forget your past.
was a trailer for Wakanda Forever, and it acknowledges the death of T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman. And that's a good thing. Though, as you can see at the end, there's another Panther. Question is, who is that Panther? And I have to also go into the depiction of the Atlanteans. Again, I don't get it. I hope to better understand it because I'm definitely going to see this movie. It seems to be that the Atlantean culture is an offshoot of the Aztecs. For reasons I already mentioned, is interesting. And I know some people are going to say, oh, but the Atlanteans were this, Atlanteans were that. The Atlanteans aren't real. That they seem to be adapting another culture is interesting, but by no means an offensive one, or at least as far as I can tell, an offensive one. Because in the comics, there was no Atlantean culture per se. It was just made up. So, that being the case, replacing what was made up and non-existent with, at least as the trailer appears to show it, a very real one is interesting. Once again, I'm really curious how they pull it off and make it work, but it is interesting. Now, what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Trailer to Reaction. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. Peace. And have a great week.